It was the morning of April 16, 2014, when the 146-meter-long European-built vessel MV Sewol, which had cost around $10 million to build, was sailing through South Korean waters. Unlike the Titanic, it had not struck an iceberg, and unlike the Costa Concordia, it had not collided with rocks. Yet, in a shocking twist, it capsized within just 2 hours. The hull sank rapidly, and although 95% of the ship was underwater, the bow section remained visible for more than 10 hours before the vessel finally disappeared into the depths of the sea. The wreck stayed submerged for nearly 3 years, and salvaging it proved to be even more difficult than raising the Costa Concordia, finally being completed in March 2017 at a cost of about $75 million. The Sewol was a roll-on, roll-off ferry carrying both cargo and passengers. On April 15, 2014, at 9 p.m., it departed from Incheon, South Korea, bound for Jeju Island. On board were Captain Lee Jun-sok, 33 crew members, and 443 passengers, the majority of whom were high school students and teachers on a field trip. The lower decks held 124 cars, 56 trucks, and nearly 1,157 tons of cargo. Originally built in Japan in 1994 and operating under the name Ferry Naminue, the ship had sailed without incident for 18 years. In 2012, the Changhajin Marine Company purchased it for $11.3 million, renovated it, and renamed it MV Sewol. From then on, it routinely made 2 to 3 weekly trips between Incheon and Jeju. On April 16th, everything seemed normal as the ship followed its usual route. The total journey was 245 nautical miles, 453 kilometers, to be completed in 13 hours. And by the time disaster struck, the ship had already traveled 186 nautical miles, leaving only about 90 minutes before arrival. At 8:27 a.m., only third mate Park Han-gyul and helmsman Jo Jun-gi were on the bridge as the captain was absent. Normally, the third mate handled navigation in such cases, and the helmsman steered accordingly. At 8:48 a.m., the third mate ordered a course change from 135 degrees to 140 degrees, then almost immediately to 145 degrees. This sudden maneuver caused the ship to list sharply, and the vehicles on the lower deck shifted violently, destabilizing the vessel and allowing water to flood in. At 8:55 a.m., a public announcement told passengers to remain in place and not move while the crew sent out the first distress signal. At 9:23 a.m., the vessel traffic service instructed the crew to inform passengers to wear life jackets. By then, chaos and negligence had already sealed the ship's fate. Several crew members had been drinking alcohol, and instead of helping the passengers, most of them students, they told them to remain inside their cabins. Meanwhile, the captain and some crew abandoned the ship early, and by 9:46 a.m. were among the first to be rescued. As the ship continued to list, some passengers obeyed the announcements, while others, terrified, jumped into the sea in an attempt to save themselves. The Coast Guard, however, failed to grasp the seriousness of the situation and did not launch an effective rescue operation in time. It took 2 hours for the Sewol to completely sink, and as cabin doors jammed shut, many students and passengers were trapped inside. The rescue mission that eventually began was too late and insufficient to save everyone. In the end, 304 people lost their lives, making it the deadliest maritime disaster in South Korea's history. On November 11, 2014, the Gwangju District Court found Captain Lee guilty of gross negligence and sentenced him to 36 years in prison. Third mate Park received 30 years, and 13 other crew members were sentenced to 20 years each for abandoning ship and violating maritime law. The Sewol tragedy remains one of the most painful reminders of how human negligence and failure to act in time can lead to catastrophic loss of life at sea.